Mommy, is the sad man going to die alone? Bryn Holloway's breath caught as she looked down at her 4-year-old son, Cade, who was peering through the window of the hospice room. Inside, an elderly man lay still, his breathing labored, no visitors by his side. She knelt beside Cade, her worn nursing scrubs crinkling as she pulled him close. "I hope not, sweetheart. No one should die alone." "Then we should sit with him," Cade whispered, pressing his small hand against the glass. "Like you sat with me when I was scared in the hospital." Bryn's eyes filled with tears. Her son, her brave, beautiful boy who'd survived pneumonia last winter while they lived in their car, still remembered fear, and still chose kindness. "You're right," she said softly, kissing his forehead. "Let's go sit with him." What Bryn didn't know was that the man in that room, Porter Ashford, had spent 64 years building a fortune in Washington, D.C., and the last 6 months realizing he had no one left to share it with. Porter had been admitted to the hospice 3 weeks earlier. Advanced heart disease, the doctor said. Maybe a month left, maybe less. His attorneys had visited once to finalize his will. His business partners had sent flowers. His estranged daughter hadn't responded to the messages. He lay in the sterile room listening to the beeping machines, waiting for the end in the same loneliness that had defined his final years. Then the door opened quietly, and a young woman in faded scrubs entered, a small boy holding her hand. "Mr. Ashford," her voice was gentle, tentative. "I'm Bryn. I'm a nurse's aide here, and this is my son, Cade. We thought you might like some company." Porter turned his head slowly, his pale eyes meeting hers. He wanted to say he preferred solitude, that he didn't need pity, but something in her face, tired but kind, struggling but still showing up, stopped him. I'd like that," he whispered hoarsely. Cade climbed onto the chair beside the bed, his little legs swinging. "Do you like stories? My mommy tells the best stories." And so Bryn sat with him, during her breaks, after her shifts, even on her days off when she had nowhere else to go. She'd read to him, talk about small things, the weather, the birds outside his window, Cade's obsession with fire trucks. Porter began to wait for those visits, began to feel something he hadn't felt in years, seen. One evening, after Cade had fallen asleep curled in the chair, Porter asked the question that had been weighing on him. "Why do you do this? You don't know me. You have your own struggles, I can tell." Bryn looked up from the book she'd been reading, surprise flickering across her face. She was quiet for a long moment. "Because," her voice trembled, "because 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car with Cade. I was working 3 jobs and still couldn't afford rent. And one night, a stranger, an old woman at a gas station, saw us. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me $200 and said, 'Someone showed me kindness once when I needed it most. Now it's your turn to receive it.'" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "That money got us into a motel, got Cade's medicine when he got sick, kept us going until I got this job." She looked at Porter directly. "I can't pay her back, but I can pay it forward." Porter felt his throat tighten painfully. "You're extraordinary." "No, I'm just someone who knows what it feels like to be invisible, and I never want anyone else to feel that way." In that moment, Porter understood something profound. This struggling single mother, barely keeping her head above water, had more wealth than he'd accumulated in a lifetime. She had something money couldn't buy, a soul that hadn't been hardened by struggle. Over the following weeks, she learned her story. The abusive ex-husband she'd fled, the family who disowned her for leaving, the constant juggling of childcare, work, and exhaustion, the dreams she'd put aside, nursing school, a stable home for Cade, a life where she was always one crisis away from collapse. And Porter learned his. The empire he'd built in government contracting, the wife who'd left him for someone with more time, the daughter who blamed him for never being there, the success that had cost him everything that mattered. "I have everything," Porter admitted one quiet afternoon, his voice barely audible. "And I have nothing. You have nothing, and you have everything." Bryn took his frail hand in hers. "It's never too late to choose love over legacy." Those words haunted him, because deep down, he knew she was right. Porter's condition worsened rapidly. The doctor said days, not weeks. His attorney came to finalize the last details of his estate. Millions divided among charities he'd never personally cared about. Foundations that would bear his name but not his heart. As the attorney prepared the documents, Porter made a request that shocked everyone. He wanted to add a codicil, a significant one. "Are you certain, Mr. Ashford? This is highly unusual." "I've never been more certain of anything," he whispered. 3 days later, Porter slipped into unconsciousness. Bryn sat vigil beside him, holding his hand, Cade sleeping against her shoulder. The machines beeped their monotonous rhythm, counting down the final hours. "You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever," Bryn whispered through her tears. "You reminded me that every person matters, that kindness isn't wasted. Thank you, Porter. Thank you for letting us be here." She felt the faintest squeeze of his fingers, and then, with Bryn's hand in his, Porter Ashford took his last breath. He didn't die alone. 2 weeks after the funeral, Bryn was called to a law office in downtown Washington, D.C. She'd never been to that part of the city, the gleaming towers, the world of power she'd only seen on television. The attorney who greeted her was professional but kind. "Miss Holloway, Mr. Ashford left specific instructions regarding his estate." "I don't understand why I'm here." "Because," he said gently, "he left you something." He slid documents across the desk. Bryn's hand shook as she read. Porter had established a trust fund for Cade's education, fully funded through graduate school. He'd purchased a home in her name, modest but safe, in a good school district, and he'd set up an endowment to send her through nursing school with a living stipend so she wouldn't have to work while studying. "This can't be real," Bryn whispered, tears streaming. Why would he? I just sat with him." The attorney's expression softened. "He left you a letter." Bryn's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. "Dear Bryn, you told me it's never too late to choose love over legacy. You were wrong about one thing. This isn't legacy, this is love. You gave a dying old man the greatest gift. You made him matter. You and Cade showed me that kindness is the only currency that truly counts. I'm not saving you. You saved yourself through sheer determination and grace. I'm simply removing the obstacles so you can become who you're meant to be. Tell Cade that the sad man didn't die alone. He died grateful, peaceful, and reminded that goodness still exists in this world. Pay it forward, Bryn. Not for me. For the woman at the gas station. For every invisible person who just needs someone to see them. With deepest gratitude, Porter." Bryn sobbed, clutching the letter to her chest. The attorney waited patiently, then added softly, "He changed his entire estate plan in those final weeks. Everything went to causes that help people like you, single parents, domestic violence survivors, those slipping through the cracks. He said you taught him what wealth really means." 5 years later, Bryn stood in her nursing scrubs, a real nurse now, working in hospice care. Cade was 9, thriving in school, surrounded by stability and love. But she never forgot. Every patient who had no visitors got her time. Every struggling family got her compassion, and every person who felt invisible got seen. Because a dying man had once whispered words she carried always. "Someone showed kindness when I needed it most. Now it's your turn." And Bryn understood that kindness isn't a transaction, it's a legacy that never ends. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.